So, welcome, Laura. First of all, I suppose it's a lovely pleasure and honour to have you here today. I think when we were sort of creating this event from scratch, we wanted to really hone in on businesses like yourself and Cocoon, who have really taken it from very small beginnings to where it is today. And I think we can all agree that those numbers are incredible. So I just want to find out a wee bit more about where it all began. But first of all, if you can give us a brief introduction into the business for those who are not familiar.
Well, I want to say first of all that it was like a full circle moment. Not only was I like chatting with Claire Vallely, who I went to school with, but also my placement, my kind of first job came through the Newry Chamber. My dad was in the Chamber and he knew Jared O'Hare, and that's where it all started. So it's an honour to be even here today and be part of it. So thanks so much for having me.
Brilliant.
What was your first question again?
You're all right. Just for those who don't know the walk-in wardrobe, just give us a brief introduction into the business and what do you sell and who to.
So this will be like a whistle-stop tour kind of thing. Yeah. So Deborah mentioned we are in business 10 years. So it started out from very humble beginnings. It was a tiny little hat shop in Banbridge. I was employed at the time and I just literally hated my job. That's why it is as horrible as it was. I always loved work. Like work was always, I loved work, whatever I was doing. This particular role I was in was more of a sales role. It was more behind, like competing for tenders, and it just was not me at all. So I suppose I probably, unless I had that push, I wouldn't have. So anyway, I was so unhappy at home and whatever. And I'd said to Mum, I was like, I would love to just do something for myself, and would love to do something. And like, I'd just look at that hat shop in Banbridge. I'm like, look what that could do. And she's like, well, why don't you just ask? Why don't you go in and ask her if she's interested in selling? And I was like, really, do you think? She's like, yeah, it's worth a try. So went in and I said, I can newly launch it through hiring hats. Love fashion, love hats, never out of it. And she was like, yeah, actually, I am getting so old. I'm sick of it. It's a slog. And she had done bridal, a lot of bridal as well. And she's like, I'm too old for this. So yeah, I will. And I was like, oh, okay. So I kind of started from there. So I took over the little tiny hat shop, and then I was like so excited because I knew then I could do fashion and I could bring brands in. I always loved shopping on holidays, and I was like, there's such an opportunity in Ireland to bring new brands, like we're just not being served. So took it on, and then within like the first like month I was away buying, I was like, let me at it kind of thing. Yeah. So then we started to do a bit of fashion, and we were still hiring the hats. And then from the beginning, I was always really hyper focused on being online from the very start. So like day one, before it even taking it over, I'd started an Instagram and a Facebook page for it. So I suppose that's really where it started, this tiny shop, and I started putting myself out there on Facebook and on Instagram and any channels at the time. So it was like, started off with my photography in the changing room. I was taking sales over the phone through Facebook, Instagram, and that's where it really built from. We were 3 years in business when we went online. So again, that was a Shopify site from the beginning. And again, echoing Claire's words, definitely, if anyone is even considering going on to e-com, wouldn't even consider anything else in Shopify, because it's an amazing platform. It really is.
Absolutely.
So that was tiny shop. Then the pub next door came up for sale. I was a landlady for a time, and we completely transformed the pub into 2 floors of retail, and then the top 1,000 square foot was for online fulfillment. Like fast forward to COVID, it was literally horrific at the time, but actually it was COVID like absolutely catapulted our business in 1 year. We just completely forced us to transform, and again, forced us to cut out the middleman, forced us to go direct to supplier, and it forced us to become a lot more casual in our offering. So traditionally we were a lot more occasion wear, so then it became casual overnight. We then took on the bank, the Northern Bank building next door. We operated on 3 floors of a bank, doing online fulfillment. Stephen, where were you when I needed you then? So then took on a warehouse then. 3 years ago, I think we're coming into the warehouse, 3 years. So we still have our Banbridge store, and now we operate from a warehouse with a stock management system, and finally that actually works, so we're not going between 3 floors of a shop and 3 floors of a bank with no lift, trying to fulfill orders and dispatch orders. So that's where we are.
And how do you find time to breathe after all that?
My mum jokes, she said it's like, Laura, it's your form of cocaine, so don't take cocaine, but I take work.
But just to take a step back, I suppose, you know, apart from e-commerce, and this whole event today is to inspire people to sort of take that leap. That was a huge leap that you took at the time, and presumably very scary, and your mum forcing you to go into the shop to ask that question. Do you think that's just innate in people, or do you think that's something that you just learn to do throughout your business journey, is to just take those risks and take those leaps?
I think I've become better at it. I suppose that was the first leap of faith. I suppose deep down in you, I always wanted to do my own thing. I always loved business of some description. But I think then when you take that first leap, everything else becomes less scary because you've done the hardest part. You've started it.
Exactly.
So I think it's always the fear. And probably if I didn't hate my job so much at the time, would I have been forced to take the jump? I look back now and I don't know. I hope that I still would have, but sometimes a forced change can be as good as any because it kind of forces, like it definitely speeds up the process. So.
Exactly, yeah.
But I can remember at the time my dad thought I was not wise. He was like, you're giving up a really good salary, a company car, the benefits you have are like, you never get it at your age. Why? You know, but it just wasn't for me. So
yeah, and when we caught up before today, I suppose you do talk about that people look at you as if you have 5 heads sometimes, you know, when you are running a business and you make decisions and leaps, but sometimes it's just what is necessary to achieve growth. Did you always have that vision to develop the Work-In Wardrobe into what it is today? Did you have, I don't think anybody really in business has a big grand master plan necessarily when you first start out, but is that something that you had in your head? Where did that vision come from? Or is it just something that you sort of organically grow over time?
I would love to tell you that I had a 10-year plan and I'm now at 10 years, but that absolutely was not the case. I think it happened very organically, but I suppose COVID definitely really, really catapulted us, as I said, and it forced us, I suppose, to really grow. But yeah, I think it happened incrementally, and yes, you don't have a master plan, but I do think you have to set yourself goals. Like we would sit down every January, like January I love because I always say it's a big planning month for the year, and that changes. Your months of planning are probably different for whatever industry you're in, but January for us is always, you know, we set really strong KPIs, and this is what we work towards every single year. So every single year we don't intend to increase sales by 30-40%. That's not what it's about, but it's about setting smaller key milestones that you want to hit within the first 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. And I would say as well that a massive help to me has been, well, I suppose 6-7 years now, we have been introduced monthly management accounts, and especially since COVID, that has really, really transformed our business in terms of how we look at it, and constantly analysing the data, constantly analysing the costs and where we are, and again benchmarking that against where we want to be in the next 3 months, 6 months, a year.
Yeah, brilliant, because measurement is so important, I suppose, on this journey. So tell us then about e-commerce. Obviously it plays a critical role in your business and has helped you to grow, but I suppose making sure that everybody sort of gets key takeaways from today, from somebody who's done it from the ground up. What are those key tools and resources that you used, particularly at the early stages? You know, you've talked about Shopify, and I know you have a partner, a digital partner that you work with, and you've spoke about having him in actually the business for a week, which I thought was phenomenal idea. But just talk us through from the start, what are the really key tools and resources that you use to make it a success?
Well, I think for us, our socials are extremely important. That's where 90% of our e-com business comes from. So like our Facebook, our Instagram, our TikTok, I suppose more recently. So I think if I was starting anywhere, I was giving any advice to anyone not in e-com or thinking about it, I would say absolutely begin somewhere, even if it is just on socials, and it's about getting your brand out there, getting your face out there. And then I think as well it is about, you know, that gives you a really good benchmarking exercise. Is there an appetite here for an e-commerce site? Is there an appetite for me to go and spend this money on a Shopify site? Have I got a customer? You know, have you got a base there already? Because you'll very quickly understand. Social media will very quickly tell you if there is an interest in the product or in that service that you want to launch. So I think as well, it is about, being smart with it and being clever, and before you start into an e-com site or any of those costs, because as Claire said, e-com is costly. It is, there is a cost against every sale, just like in store. And they can really stack up. So if you can start that process via socials and really build it up that way and gauge if there's an interest and whether it will start to pay for itself, I would say start there, I suppose.
Brilliant. And obviously website, Shopify being your chosen platform is extremely important there in your ecosystem, I suppose.
I think it's a mix of everything, Maeve. It's your socials, it's your Shopify site, it's your email marketing, it's your in-store experience. That all have to cohesively work together. The tone has to feel the same. It has to be the same experience. Like, it has to be that, we're trying to mirror an in-store experience online, and at every point online there's an opportunity to mirror an in-store experience. And I suppose that product page is an example, and we're working, this is our goal for this year, is to really, really work on all of those touch points on our site and understand the customer journey through the site and how we can, personalise the site at every single point in that customer journey. So again, like if they come in store, there is a point of how does the store look? How does it feel? Mm-hmm. What are you seeing? What are your eye drawn to? How are you merchandising it? So that visual merchandising needs to come through really strong on your site. You need to be, for us, we need a visual merchandiser almost constantly on our site.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So just to touch on that a wee bit more, can you tell us some of the key sort of features on our product page or your checkout? Like I've picked up on one earlier, obviously, the click and collect. It's just those wee small things, incremental things that you add or you change on product pages. But can you talk us through, say, maybe over the last year, the types of things that you've worked on your website? Yeah,
I think what we call them is kind of trust signals at every single point. So it's like, just giving that customer just the confidence and that building up that trust at every point in that journey from they come on site. And that's, touch on our southern customers. That's extremely important for us this year, was to give them those trust signals from the very beginning. So if you're coming on in Dublin, are you seeing immediately on site that there are no duties, there are no taxes? We are an Irish firm based in Ireland, we ship from Ireland. So that needs to be front and centre. It needs to be a banner on the website, and there's ways and means. You don't have to plaster it, but definitely from that very outset we need to set that out. So it's from the move on site, how do they get on the site, and then it is at every point. It's so they move on to a collection. How is that collection merchandised? What forced them into that collection? Was it a social, or was it through the site? Was it through your banners? Then you're moving into your product page, and a product page, I think that's is where it gets extremely important. It's like Laura wears with, Ursula has styled with. Have you considered other people bought? If you're interested in this, we think you would love this. And it's really personalising that. And yes, we have explored AI, but a lot of times how we're styling it on socials is what people want to see on the site. So that is a lot of manual work, but actually it really, really pays off.
Yeah, and to that point, I suppose we've talked a wee bit about user-generated content, and I've seen you use that across the site a lot. And for me, even as a personal shopper, I find that really beneficial to see a range of sort of different body types and shapes and people wearing your items. So is that something that you've considered to be important over time?
I think so as well. So obviously a lot of that user-generated content is on Facebook and it's on Instagram, and I think Maeve and I touched on that yesterday. It's like, part of you always at the back of your head is thinking, I'm at their mercy here. I am at the mercy of Meta. So it's about taking that experience and owning it. So we've introduced a tool called Tolstoy into our site last year. So Tolstoy integrates all of our Instagram and our Facebook feeds. So our user-generated content is now coming up on a feed on our site as well. So our outfit today is also on a video on our site that we own. So it is not forced by Instagram or forced by Facebook. It's not a feed from them. We're doing the feed, but it almost feels like it's from social media. So again, that's really important as well, to own your own data. Like, that's the main reason we have an app, is because we own that data. We are front and center on their phone. We're not relying on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok to be an app on their phone. We want to be an app on your phone. We want to be there. Mm-hmm. If you're thinking about clothes, if you're thinking about online shopping, we want to be on your phone. We want to be very easy to get to as well. But also part of the app was that we own, I'm not at the mercy then of Facebook or Instagram. And look, I'm very glad of them, don't get me wrong, But also there is that part that says, you know what, you've got to own this as well. So Klaviyo, again, there's about 20% of our sales come through our email marketing, so it's huge for us. And also then that translates in store as well. So I always say, if you have left that store and you have not given us your email address, we're doing something wrong, because we need to capture that in store as much as we need to capture it online. So that's really, really important. And I asked Maeve was in store yesterday, and I goes, Maeve, did you give us your email address before you left? Please tell me you did. And she said, yes, I did.
And just talking about that, I suppose, just as part of the research for today, I did go into store, bought this top actually, to honour you. But
you're like a mystery shopper, Maeve. You never told me about this.
So I did go in just to have a look around, and obviously you passionately feel that plays a big role, bricks and mortar still. What does it give you that e-commerce will never give you?
The touch and feel. Mm-hmm. I don't know, it's very difficult as women, men too, I suppose. You like to touch and feel it. And I think bricks and mortar gives you an opportunity to meet your customer, to face them, to chat to them. Because in a world of social media, a lot of time we don't talk to each other. We talk online, but we never actually face the customer. So that for me is so important, to just be able to have a conversation as well. So, and again, we have found during COVID, a lot of people moved to online shopping, but actually in the last year, we're seeing a real shift back to in-store. And in-store also gives you an opportunity to bring customers' confidence back to in-store shopping, to in-store experiences. And I think as well, in-store needs to go above and beyond at every single point. So it's that whole like personal shopping, that style advice. You know, why are you stopping in Banbridge and you're out of Belfast where you have an offering of so much more, or Dublin? Why? You know, I said, why are they stopping? Why are they coming in store today? Is it because that you're greeting them, you're actually saying hello, you're taking time to chat to somebody, to make their day, to give them that style advice if they haven't tried? And it's not about pushing a sale. Yes, a sale is great, happy days, we're delighted, don't get me wrong. But it also is about, it's about educating them, it's about giving them the confidence, the body confidence as well, to go into the change room, giving them that ease that you're not here to judge, you're actually here to help, and again, give them the confidence. So, and we've just developed our own brand in the last year, and that was part of the whole reason behind our own brand and development, was because a lot of the time we are at the mercy of manufacturers, of suppliers that we didn't have control over. So part of our own brand was that we finally had control over sizing, shape, structure of pieces, because, and again, this is not sexist, but we would find that we were doing buying off a lot of men, and I was like, these men have never worn these clothes, like, you know, so it was like women need, women led, designed by women, for body shape, for confidence. So, and I think that has definitely shone through in our sizing as well, because a lot of the time through, you know, our buying for walk-in wardrobe, we were at the mercy of supplier sizing. So our own brand now gives us that control over our sizing. So if we say it's a size 12, it's a size 12, it's not a size 14, or it's not a size 10. Mm-hmm. So it's things like that, I think, as well, that allows you to communicate with a customer when you're in store as well.
Exactly. And when I was in the shop, actually, and I'm not just saying it, the customer service was amazing. In one instance, the girl that was actually serving was trying on a shirt for somebody on the phone, and she's saying, "Oh, it is, it's definitely a size 8, and you know, it's a small fitting or it's a big fitting, or, you know." And she was talking her through it, and I actually overheard the customer say, "I've got this code. Does it still work online?" And so there's the perfect mix, I suppose, of bricks and mortar and online. As well, and that discovery piece, you know, people will discover you from all different points in their buying journey. A lot of global brands, I suppose, are now recentering their strategy around social media, and you've talked about yourself how crucial it is. Why do you think it is so important? And tell us a wee bit about what that typical week looks like for you in terms of content development. You'll be here all day.
I think probably this figure will shock a lot of people, but that this is only me, and this is how I have built the business. It won't be the same for everyone, so don't start thinking you have to spend 2 days a week filming content. But that is the reality of where we are as a business. We are now, you know, moving to 2-3 days a week of content production, organic content production. That mightn't always look like me. It's definitely not. It's not me always, but it's the whole team we're constantly just producing content for social media. So, but it's working for us. That's what works for us. It definitely does. And I was saying to you, Maeve, that In the past 2 years, we turned off all paid socials and we just came back to basics and went with organic content, and we saw no drop off. This year we have went back into paid only because we now have a bit more margin with Love Laura and our own brand, so that has allowed us. We also have stock inventory, which allowed paid socials. So again, paid socials is not for everyone. It definitely, when it works, it's excellent, but I think there's a few pre-requirements for ads. So for us it is that, you know, an ad needs, I would say, would need 3 to 6 months traction time, and across that 3 to 6 months, that you must have that piece in stock. So with Walk-in Wardrobe, it was very fast. So with Love Laura, that allows us to carry the stock. It allows us to slow it down. It allows us to have pieces throughout the season, not just because we have to launch a piece in January because, oh, we're now in spring, summer. That's not what Love Laura was about. It was about, we will launch a piece when it is right, when it's ready, and it's trans-seasonal. It shouldn't be we're launching a piece only because it's June, only because it's July. We launch a piece because we think it's a piece that you'll love, rather than because fashion tells us that we have to launch in March, April, whatever that month looks like.
Yeah, exactly. And paid social, as you've said, is a huge commitment and something that takes time. You know, it doesn't happen overnight. Just to remind everybody, if you want to ask Laura a question, just for the end, because I know we're kind of running over time a wee bit, just pop it onto the Slido link. The QR codes are on the little sheet. So just a couple more questions before we close out. What major obstacles have you faced in your online journey as a sort of becoming that online retailer, and how did you overcome them?
I probably think there's obstacles most weeks, most days in online retailing, and I think, you know, one of the major obstacles as a business probably was COVID and how we navigated COVID. So I feel like if I can navigate COVID, I can navigate most things after that. But I think it's like it comes down to everything. It's like you just have to problem solve at every point. You have to be the customer. And I love how you said in your presentation, like if you're the owner of a site, you need to use that site. Mm-hmm. You need to be on buying, like, or pretending to buy.
Mystery shopping,
yeah, you know, so that you understand that. So I think as well, you know, you need to want to be the best. So if you're shopping elsewhere, why are you shopping elsewhere for a similar product? What is making you shop elsewhere? How can you integrate that into your site? How can you integrate that into your customer experience online? So I think, you know, it's about exploring apps, but also understanding that apps are not the be all and end all, and it's constantly reviewing them. And again, I think Claire touched on all of that. You know, it's points in time, you know, that, you know, this year will not look like the same next year in e-com. So that's what I think the constant challenge is. It's constantly changing it up and not being afraid of change. I think if you're in e-com, you gotta not be afraid of change. And I think change scares a lot of people, but especially in e-com, it's very fast. So you have to be the person that embraces change and lets it all wash over you. And
yeah, exactly. And I think not being afraid to learn as you go.
Absolutely.
Do you know?
And again, we touched on this issue. You don't have to pay a lot of the time to learn. Like you've YouTube, you've all of these tutorials. If you're Shopify, like Shopify has everything there that you need to pretty much do it yourself. You don't need to pay a developer in the early days. So I certainly didn't in the early days.
Absolutely, yeah.
So there definitely are tools at night. If you're sensible, you'll be going on TikTok's like even
amazing.
You know,
yeah.
I'm sure you're the same. Other marketeers on TikTok, you're following them. You're following other digital. Anybody that you're going to take inspiration of or learn from, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Could you have scaled your business without e-commerce?
Absolutely not. No. If you like, you're opening yourself up. You know, if I'm in Banbridge, I'm at the mercy of Fitfall in Banbridge on that day. Yes, I might drive Fitfall, but absolutely not. Yeah, I can. You know, I can be anywhere in the world and. Not that I go too far, I wish I was. But, you know, as again, going back to what Claire said, the sales are coming when you're not there. You know, it's not relying on you standing physically in a shop in Banbridge. So, yes, the shop is useful. It's lovely to have the mix. But, like, e-commerce is absolutely transformative. It has been for me, certainly. I couldn't, you know, I always say, I would find it very difficult. I couldn't. It just would be physically impossible for me to go back to a standalone bricks and mortar store. I wouldn't even attempted. From the beginning, I know it was very difficult for me. I couldn't have made that shop work with only bricks and mortar from the very beginning. Honestly, I couldn't have.
And we talked a wee bit about yesterday about your sort of demographic or, you know, geography of customers. And you said about 40% in the south, 40% in the north, and the rest kind of UK, Europe. Has it given you the potential there to grow, or have you any ambition to grow beyond home markets?
We chatted about this yesterday, but I feel like we haven't saturated Ireland. Definitely haven't saturated the UK. So when I have all my shipping rates set up for the UK, I have everything ready to go. I'm perfectly placed. You know, at this stage in the business, I have no ambition to go elsewhere other than the UK and Ireland. I have a pocket of really good customers in New York, and that keeps growing, but I think that's maybe Irish expats that are just loving Irish style. I don't know, but I think like it goes back to the opportunity we have. We're placed in Northern Ireland. We have a massive opportunity, not only for the south but for the UK as well. So I'm happy to maximise that for as long as it continues. And you know, you're into language barriers, you're into tones, you're into so for me, no, I've no massive plans. If I can saturate the UK, I'll be happy.
You're busy enough. And just to end, before we move into questions from the floor, which I think there's only one so far, so anybody else who wants to pop on a question, please feel free. So what would be your 3 top tips for anyone setting up an e-commerce store? And if you could talk to the nature of those tools, sort of touch on the sort of key tools that you use as a takeaway for people today, what would be your tips there?
I think start somewhere. Just go for it. Don't put it off. Just if you have an idea or you think you want to sell online, you have to just make it happen. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. You won't make a mistake if you start putting yourself out there on socials. This goes back to my journey, would be the first thing that I would tell you to do is before you go into e-commerce site and spend any money is to start gauging your online community. Is there an appetite? Are you engaging with your customers online? Are you putting yourself out there? Are you creating a community? Are you being authentic online? You know, have you considered TikTok? Have you considered, you know, it has never been easier to get online or to put yourself out there as a brand. So that's where I would start. You know, even if you're service based, you know, have you considered Zoom? I don't know if you're a gym instructor, a Pilates instructor, get online in some description. It doesn't need to be social media. Maybe it's a WhatsApp channel. Maybe it's a Zoom. Set up something. Get online. Get in front of your customers. And then when the appetite is there, that's when you go into e-com. But build that community first online. That's really, really important, just so that you know you have a customer base at least when you start.
And post building that community then and setting up e-com, what would be your tips?
I think that's constantly engaging with your community, constantly staying front and centre. So whether that's on socials, again, like for me as well, I think with Love Laura and the development of our own brand, it's been really even more important to stay in touch with my community. And that's this year we've introduced focus groups for Love Laura. So that's like a monthly Zoom call with some key customers that have purchased Love Laura, but not only that, they've also signed up to be part of this focus group so that they can give constant feedback on design, on user experience on site, on socials. Like it's just it's a massive customer focus that I would host once a month as well. So 1 month it could be Love Laura, the next it could be socials. You know, what are you loving, what are you not loving, you know, what frustrates you on site, what do you like on site. So again, it's all of that.
And presumably launching your own collection has been really exciting. I've seen some of your stories yesterday. How has that helped you sort of over the last year or so, launching that collection?
Yeah, the Love Laura collection definitely has been the next big, and I see it as the next big growth phase for the business, because not only it gives us control, but it also gives us that slightly more margin. So it allows us then to really delve into the likes of paid socials. And it also just gives us a lovely opportunity to do something a little different. This year we haven't done it yet, but we've delved into a brand new market for us in terms of manufacturing. So I teased it out in my stories yesterday. Whether it comes to fruition, I don't know. It's almost there. So I would love to see that happen this year, because I feel there is nobody disrupting this market at the minute in terms of own brand and creating their own collection. So I think there's a massive opportunity there. But we're not there yet, so we'll continue with the pieces, the Love Lower pieces for now. So yeah, that's where we are.
Brilliant, an amazing step forward for sure. So just to end with the question from the floor, and I have one myself, are you finding a skills shortage to resource your e-commerce business at the moment?
Absolutely. Not a skills shortage, but I think what we do is really unique even as a business, and I suppose every business could say this, but we're pretty unique in terms of our split of socials and of e-com, and just in like even our stock management of how fast some of our pieces can move. So we're finding that sometimes just promoting from within has been, you know, I've made mistakes and I've taken in what I would consider to be experts, but sometimes experts are fine in one part, but they need to understand the business as a whole. It's really important for walk-in wardrobe. I always say it's a beast. It's a lot to get to grips with. There's so many moving parts, and it's extremely fast in terms of from delivery to customer, not even from us getting stock in to the customer actually gets that stock. So we have found that training staff is much better, so training from the ground up, apprenticeships, and promoting from within, and really, really encouraging staff to take on more and to learn more. So but I do think in terms of like there's an absolute, I would always say to anybody in school or like even considering university is like, have you considered an apprenticeship, or have you considered going into business in terms of e-com and learning from the ground up? Because there's absolutely like a massive opportunity there.
Mm-hmm. And that's where I suppose the SRC locally they're come into play. You know,
yeah, and I think
level.
it's something as a chamber as well that we really should be looking at. It's that whole like, how do we encourage kids, you know, and how do we get them involved? Because you know, I always say school isn't for everyone. I don't even mean school, I mean university isn't for everyone, and I do see the benefits of some of the university courses, but a lot of the time when I see that we get kids at, like we have one at the minute in store and she's only 16, and like I don't want to put her off going to university, but at the same time I am like, the potential in that wee girl is incredible. She just has the flair for, she sees an opportunity, she can problem solve, she just has it. So, you know, it's about seeking those people out and like taking them with you all the time. On
the journey, yeah. And I do think the nature of employment has changed and is changing all the time. Like I look at my little niece sitting over there watching her playing Roblox at the minute. She's not listening to us at all. But young people, how they use technology, that is all changing so dramatically. And I think I would agree with you. We need to take them on the journey and to sort of upskill them, for sure. And my final question, if we've a wee bit, just a minute, not to get all feminist on it. We put the world to rights yesterday. But the reality of running a business as a woman, you know, isn't so glamorous all the time. And you know, I would be a big advocate of being really honest about it, really upfront about it, and encouraging our young girls that if they want to set up a business, absolutely do it. You have to love it, you have to have passion, but I do think there could be more support for women and just a wee bit more honesty. Is that something you would agree with?
Yeah, I definitely think there needs to be a bit more honesty around it. But then again, you know, we're in a world where we have to prove ourselves too, so we don't want to be too honest because we can let ourselves down.
Exactly, yeah.
But I remember the audience just asked me there, you know, at the break, she said, do you still slog? Like, are you still finding that you would work really hard? I'm like,
harder than ever.
Harder than ever. Honestly, there's like, you know, when you have this, like, I don't know, you're going to kick back next year, that's it. That's going to be different next year. Oh, that's it. Next year does not. Next year it goes, woo! My husband's a firefighter, and I always say, Jared, I put out far more fires every day than you do in a month.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think, look, it's a great opportunity, and it's a great space to be in, women in business, and you know, and the support that we have for each other is incredible. And I also think there is so much opportunity for women in e-com, especially in Ireland. That, you know, there are so many female-led founders that are leading the way in e-com and disrupting big beauty, especially around beauty industry, retail. There is no reason that women cannot do it. And if Ireland is the perfect example, I could, off the top of my head, name 20 right now of female-led founders that are absolutely killing it in their field. So I think there's massive opportunities for women in business, but I do agree that it definitely needs more support. And I suppose it definitely needs more honesty around it all, but that's a battle for another day,
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much. It's been so lovely to chat to you. If there's any more questions from the floor, I don't think we maybe have time. So we'd probably